and I just think we should all just take a second and applaud the beautiful planners that put this together. It's just... I do talks and conferences, but this is so well done, and for them to have so many things available that you can take home for free on top of it. So I just want to applaud you, Vilma, and your whole team, Roxy, everybody, for this beautiful conference. I'll just do my commercial message first, because otherwise I'll forget. But I did do a few books in my spare time. I'll tell you about that in a little while. There isn't much left. I did 5 books. I brought 3 with. You can order everything you order, all the proceeds. I don't make any money. I never did, so why start now? My husband will be sure to tell you that. He's the CPA. And he said he could be a millionaire. He goes to lunch with he's the only one that is not a millionaire, with all his kids that he grew up with. And I said, I saved you from all of that. I'm your ticket to heaven. So... This is my book called Parenting with Prayer, and honestly, it's kind of Marianne's version of the Catholic Catechism. It's got everything in there from how do I explain to my kids about the Trinity, or about the sacraments, or about like going to confession. Now, you probably have perfect kids, so you probably didn't need to have... I mean, my one son, Tony, came up to me and said, I said, today's Saturday, everybody's going to confession, and he says, hey, I don't need to go anymore. I didn't do anything wrong. I said, oh, really? Really? You didn't do anything wrong. I will make you a list, and then I'll make you and Father lunch, because you will be there for a while. So this is called Parenting with Prayer, $10. All the proceeds go to Pro-Life Across America, because that's the organization I work with and I believe in, and I'm always trying to raise money for them. The next book, which I can't find, is called, here it is. Building a Legacy of Love. And this was when my kids started going through the adolescence. What do you do about taking trips? What about talking about chastity and dating? And so this is called Building a Legacy of Love. Again, it's $10, very inexpensive, goes to Pro-Life Across America. This is the most recent book called Prayers for Life. And it's a 40 daily devotional. And it really tells why we pro-lifers. It's not just about the unborn. It is about us praying for the unborn, praying for the mother, praying for those who've had abortions, praying for those who are caring for loved ones in the end part of their life, or praying for those doctors, nurses, health personnel who are now faced with life and death decisions. So it's got some wonderful stories. I really stole everything from all my favorite saints, so it's nothing that I invented. It's really from my favorite saints, and really stories of conversion too. One of the conversion stories is a man I knew and I co-spoke with. His name was Dr. Bernard Nathanson, and he performed over 60,000 abortions before Cardinal O'Connor welcomed him into the Catholic Church. So I was lucky enough to know him and to talk with him, and he, by the way, he said to me, you people who stand outside of those abortion clinics, he said, I'd look out from my New York office and I'd think these fools with their rosaries standing there going up and down. He said, it works. It works. So never give up. About our organization, I'm not here to speak about that, but I want you to come. We've got all sorts of free literature. I want to introduce my friend who gives up her own weekend and her own time at her own expense to fly and help me, Diane Foster, if you'll stand up. She will be there to help you later. Oh, but I have one more thing to sell. This is our 30th anniversary of Pro-Life Across America. If you don't know who we are, we're the billboard people. We put billboards across the United States with a hotline number. Have you seen them? The hotline number that people can call, we average 220 to 250 calls a month to our hotline. We work with over 3,000 agencies across the United States, getting these callers connected to the pregnancy support, confidential counseling, post-abortion assistance, whatever they need. We try to get them the help that they need so they don't have abortion. If you have a church, these are free posters. I can tell you 2 stories of women who had abortions scheduled or in the back of a church, as one woman called and said, I just read this pamphlet and I saw this brochure, and where can I get help? I'm scheduled for an abortion. I said, where are you? And she told me she was on the Iowa border in a small town of Minnesota. And I said, oh, do you belong to that Catholic church? She said, no, I work in the factory here, but I ran in church to get out of the rain. Thank you, Jesus. So thank you to the pastor who posted the poster. So I encourage all of you to help your pastors out by taking our free posters and encouraging him to post it in the back of your church as well. We also were one of the few pro-life organizations that takes a strong position on chastity. I loved your presentation. This brochure is called Contraception, Abortion in Disguise. It's free. Please get some or more for your church racks from Diane. This one's called The Truth About Planned Parenthood. They hate this brochure, by the way. But then my husband says we don't laugh enough, and so he wrote a brochure called John's Jokes. They're just terrible jokes. This is a calendar. Whoever buys the books gets a free calendar as long as we have them. And it shows each, if you wonder where we get our babies, we've actually had people who do checks and all sorts of things call and say, can we buy your baby photos? Not for sale. Our babies are all babies of people who donate to Pro-Life Across America. So these are just some of our little babies. So that's my commercial message. We also have drop cards. I think they're like $5 for a package or 2 for $7. I know people who leave them in restaurants and bathrooms or whatever, because on the other side it tells, did you know, when a baby has a heartbeat or brain waves or whatever. We sometimes have school kids do fundraisers for us, and I love to, when they raise a lot of money, if it's in Minnesota, I'll go and visit the kids, and I love to pass out these pens. There, with a click of the pen, there's a little story that tells about the development of the baby. I just had eye surgery about a week and a half ago, and I'm trying to get used to new glasses, and my eye is watering and whatever. God has a wonderful way of showing me humility, like all the time, as if I didn't. I always say that's the one virtue I'll never pray for is humility, because I had 13 kids, so you don't need to pray for humility when you got kids, but... You click the pen and it says 18 days a baby's heartbeat. Click again, 9 weeks fingerprints. Click again, 10 weeks a baby can feel. Click again, 12 weeks a baby can smile. Click again, adoption, a baby can live. So we ask a donation, I don't know, I think they're $500 a piece, but you can get... But you can get them from Diane. We have, I don't know how many here, and whatever your donation is, I think what's it, $5 or whatever, 2 for something. But at any rate, we want you to have them and give them to your teenage kids. This is our 30th anniversary of doing billboards across the United States, and in honor, I hope you'll all be a bag lady. We ask a $10 donation. If you don't have the money and you want a book or a bag or a pen or whatever, take it. You're Catholic, you'll feel guilty someday. You'll send me the money. I know you will. Now, and if you want to know what my kids look like when they're all manageable and young, these are free too, and they're little baby bookmarks, and so I want you to help yourself. So I'll be truthful now that all these others, this sister, I loved your story. Honey, how can I ever copy what we just heard? So I went in my room and put some shot in my eye after I heard you, darling, and thought, I don't know, this won't work. Because I have to be honest, I was not an A student. I was not always a good Catholic. Well, I always went to Mass, but I faked it. But and I never wanted to get married. Isn't God funny? I never wanted to have children. Well, yeah, that came. But then I met my Polish prince, and I'm not Polish. My last name is. I came from an orphanage. I'm an orphan kid. I was adopted at the age of 9 months. My husband will tell you it's because it took them 9 months to find someone that wanted her. But so my big dream, I was such a mixed up. My parents, they were wonderful. They adopted me and my 2 brothers, but my parents were unhappy. They fought a lot. And so I thought, my mom said, every marriage is like this, so I figured if every marriage is like this, this is not what I want. I want a career in a convertible and to see the world. Then I met my Polish prince, and I was Catholic, and so I threw out the convertible. When I had my baby, I threw out the career, and here I is. So we have 7 by tummy, as the kids would say, and 6 by airport or adoption. And back then you could do that. It was very well, I thought it was inexpensive. John never did. But anyways, I just felt like adoption saved my life. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for adoption. And so I wanted everyone to know about adoption, and I couldn't stand the fact that there were kids that needed homes that weren't adopted, and so I convinced my wonderful, mild-mannered, he's everything I'm not. I'm type A, you can imagine, the biggest nag, And he's very mild-mannered, slow, like, well, I don't know. Do you think we can afford it? Well, who asked that, But... And so I convinced him that we should adopt. So I'll just give you a little rundown. We have 7 by Tummy. They all look like my husband. They're kind of blonde and Polish-looking. And we have 1 from the Philippines, 2 from Vietnam, 1 black Vietnamese, 1 full Vietnamese, 1 from Calcutta, India, 1 black American, and 1 Mexican American. So I always tell them I got them color coordinated so I could tell them apart. So, the mailman used to call us the United Nations. The school registrar called us a headache. We had an usher at church that used to save us the first 2 rows, because it's wonderful. You do sit in the first rows, and just like your wonderful talk said, the kids pay attention. Plus, I usually sit behind them, and so they know they'll get no treat, no coffee, donut afterwards if anybody messes around, But so people sometimes ask, well, how did you do it? Well, we had 3 sets of bunk beds. We had this great big house. We just filled it up with kids. I put all the thumbsuckers and bedwetters in one area and the adolescents in another area. We had hand-me-down clothes that my kids thought were just wonderful. Now, when they say, well, who wore this before? My mother never wanted me to have a bunch of kids. I have true confession. She kept saying, you're just going to look like an unmade bed. You're just never going to look nice. You're going to never have nice clothes, or if you're going to start dragging in all these kids from all these foreign countries and all this stuff. And so when she'd come over and visit, she'd say to my girls, where did you get that darling dress? And the kids would say, from the bag, because people were always, true, people were always dropping off bags of clothes at my house because they knew I had so many kids that somebody could wear it. Not the boy. And my mother would say, don't say bag, honey. Don't say bag. Say Macy's. Say J.C. Penney's. But don't tell people it's from a bag. I have to say my life changed. Well, my life changed when I got married. But it really changed when I had that first kid. I didn't know I'd fall in love. Every mother here knows what I'm talking about. I didn't know I'd fall in love with this snot-nosed brat that was going to change my life. I sold a convertible. I sold my career. I couldn't see the world like I wanted to. Now I got this kid that's colicky on top of everything else. What am I going to do? You love that kid so much you're going to die for the kid. My son in New York, Mr. Hotshot's the only one that's really making money, and he's getting it to me, too, to donate. He just had his first kid. I called him up. I said, now you know you're going to die for that kid, aren't you? He said, I can't believe it. I thought I was prepared. I said, I know. Your heart is never the same. So you want more for your kid. I always feel bad when I meet these parents who say, all I want is for them to be happy. Do you know anybody who's always happy? You show me someone who's always happy, I'll show you someone who's either mentally ill or on drugs. I don't want my kids happy. I like them a little miserable. They should be striving for something, offering it up. Look, that's why I love being Catholic. We never let anything go to waste. We even offer up our misery, Those poor Protestants, they don't know, No, we want more for our kids. When they say, I want a college education, my kids used to say, I want a room of my own, or a bike, or a piece of clothing someone else didn't wear first, No, my number one goal for my kid is to get him to heaven. That's my number one goal. It should be yours. That's why we're here today. That's why we gave up our day to get together to just kind of cheerlead for each other. And you grandparents, you godparents, you aunts, if you're single out there, unless you're dead, there's somebody in your family that you want to offer up your day, pray for, because that's our number one goal for them too. Even if their parents forgot about it, even if they forgot about it. Mother Teresa had a very famous saying, and I love it. She said, we are not here to solve the problems of the world, but to point to the glory of God. So all of us who are grandparents or godmothers or aunts or uncles, maybe you're single and you've never got... But we should be pointing to the glory of God. Isn't that wonderful? He gives us something to do, no matter what. Now, my pastor used to scare the devil out of me. I'd be sitting in the first row, and he'd say, parents are the first missionaries of their children. I'd think, I'm praying my kid has amnesia. I'm not kidding you. I'm Italian. I told my kids I'll get varicose veins of the neck if I can't yell it out and talk, you know. I have to. I thought my kids would all convert just because I nag so much. They don't want to listen to me. I better do it her way just to get her to shut up, you know. Parents are the first missionaries of their children. I thought, my kids are only going to remember how much I yelled, how disciplined I was, you know, how I made them do all this stuff. The funny thing is now my kids are grown. They remember the silliest things. But they get together and they chuckle about all the things, like the time that Teresa, I assigned everybody jobs, and Teresa was my slow learner, borderline retarded, and she would mix, we have powdered milk, because when you have that many kids. And so they're supposed to stir the milk, you know, and I'd hear them at the breakfast table going, "Who made the milk today? There's lumps in the milk." Well, Teresa, I said, "Well, why don't you guys trade with her so at least somebody stirs the milk?" And they said, "Are you kidding? Everyone has to have a job." Well, that's called the mafia, you know, they stick together. The reason why it's our number one goal, I used to tell my kids, what's my number one goal? They say, "Can we go to this movie?" I say, "Well, I don't know. Is it in line with our number one goal?" Oh, I hate that. I hate that phrase. I get the call from the principal, you know, "Well, we have your Dominic here. You better come over and we better have a talk with you and your husband. Your Dominic's in trouble again." John and I would walk in and the high school principal would say, "You know, Mrs. Kuharski, I said to Dominic, you know, you're a nice kid. You come from a big family, but you're in trouble all the time. I'm going to give you this piece of paper. Go in the other room. I want you to write down any goals that you have in life. Do you have any goals, Dominic, you can think of?" And Dominic goes, "I don't know. I can't." He says, I'm not sure, but he says, "My ma has got plenty, I'll tell you." Now, I want you to know he was grounded, of course, but even when they're in trouble, I want them to remember, what's my number one goal for you, right? We want them to know this is our number one goal for you. We're not going to let go of it. It's not some fancy yacht. It's not some, you know, thing that you always want to do. It's not Disneyland. Well, don't think of that. We're not going there anyways. But I tell them, Scripture says, "Eye has not seen, ear has not heard, nor has it so much as dawned on man." I said, think of the best birthday party you ever had. Heaven's better. Think of the best Christmas, the biggest gift, the most fabulous thing you think you ever wanted. Well, you'll never get it in this house, but, you know, you can think of it if you want. But heaven is better. So wouldn't we really want that for the people we love? Really, even the people we don't love, don't we want that too? That's nothing more fun than praying for someone that doesn't like you, you know? I especially like to do that. It makes me laugh. I can be doing dishes and offering up the dishes and praying for some sucker that doesn't like me, you know? And it just makes the dishes, you know, go faster. Well, parents are the first missionaries. Now I'm watching my kids parent, and my kids will say, "Oh, I can't even believe I sound so much like you, Mom. I couldn't even believe what I told the kids today." And I just smile. Isn't that something? I'm old enough to hear it and remember it. Marriage and parenting is a vocational call. It's not just a temporary, I'm going to do this and then I'm going off and do something meaningful in life. No, this is it. God entrusted you. When you think about it, He trusted you with that little baby in the front row. He's trusting that mama that she is going to do everything possible to get him what? Heaven. That is really something. It's the future. God is doing the future through us. But here, in case we forget, this is the encyclical. This is what the church says about sex that's so wonderful. Here's how the church sees husband and wife as co-creators with God. Isn't that something? Co-creators. And here's how it's put in the encyclical by our Holy Father, Pope John Paul II. In affirming that spouses as parents cooperate with God the Creator in conceiving and giving birth to a new human being, we're not speaking merely with reference to the laws of biology. No, he says, instead, we wish to emphasize that God Himself is present in human fatherhood and motherhood quite differently than He's present in all instances of begetting on earth. Thus, a man and a wife joined in matrimony become partners in a divine undertaking. Think of it. When you snuggle with your husband in bed and you're in a Catholic marriage, you're part of a divine undertaking. Is that beautiful? Isn't that beautiful? And that's why we don't want to cloud it up. Now, do we have enemies? Yeah. They're all over. They're just dying to pull you down, pull your family down, separate you, divide you. You probably know it. You probably have it within your own family. Maybe your mother, your father, your brothers, your sisters, or whatever going. You're going to a Catholic conference? Why would you waste your time? You're going to have opposition, your neighbors or whatever. You just smile and pray for them, right? You just smile and say, oh, just pray for them. I don't want to get gloom and doom, but I think we need to know who our enemy is and how strong they are. People sometimes say, well, why do you spend all your time? Because the public enemy, number one enemy to family life in the United States is Planned Parenthood. And I just want to read you what they do to try to get our kids and our grandkids so that they are contracepting, they're having multiple sex partners, even opposite sex, whatever, anything to entertain them. They took ads out in the Minnesota, South Dakota newspapers, full-page ads in the student newspapers. I used to bring the newspaper on, but I got so black opening and closing it up, so I printed it out. Babies are loud, smelly, and expensive unless you want one. Planned Parenthood of Minnesota, South Dakota. Let me read you another one. It gets better, worse. Avoid stretch marks, call Planned Parenthood. That's not as bad as this one. This one is a poster we pulled out of a high school. And it shows God the Father, and he's kneeling. I'll show you this one first. This is Mary and Joseph kneeling over the baby Jesus, and it said, God had only one son. Follow his example. Visit your local Planned Parenthood. If you think that's something, here's the other one, God the Father with two archangels. And it said, if God, now remember, these are posters in high schools. If God could control how many children you should have, we think he would say two. We also think he would bless you if you visit your nearest family planning center. Do you see what I'm saying? If that's not bad enough, they will reduce themselves to anything. This is a comic book written by one of the executives of Planned Parenthood. And you can see the front, Abortion Eve. And it says it's a discussion about the legality of abortion, what to expect during an abortion, head trips before and after, head trips. And then it's going, it ain't exactly a happy decision. What if it's wrong? But it's better than no choice at all. In case we think we Catholics are that they're just picking on us and they really aren't, I want you to see the back. This is a mock-up of the Blessed Mother. And you can see her face is that Alfred Newman from and it says, what me worry? She's pregnant. And there's babies down below, and it says, what me worry? This is a secular comic book. And by the way, they're in libraries, public libraries, too. That's where I actually found this one. I'm borrowing it. So, when you get to be a grandma, you give yourself permission to do a lot of stuff. I'm not leaving it for some kid to pick up, so sorry. In case we think that we're one step ahead of Planned Parenthood, this is a recent newspaper article. Planned Parenthood launches drive to protect abortion access. That was after this current president got elected and the Congress, because they know now they're up for a battle. And we have to give it to them, kids. I'm in a non-political organization, but there isn't a thing that's unpolitical about me personally. So we need to vote. We need to pray. We need to continue to vote. We need to write our Congress people and ask them, defund Planned Parenthood. They get over $526 million of your tax dollars every year to indoctrinate our kids. And then they do things like this. In Minnesota, we have a high Somali population. We have a high Hmong and Vietnamese population. They send people who can speak that language into the junior high schools to teach them about women's health, which is a code phrase for all the sex and contraceptives that you can get free from Planned Parenthood or at a low cost. We have to stop it. In case you think they're not selling abortion, this is a copy of a gift certificate awarded. It's an award given to the Aurora, Illinois Planned Parenthood for exceeding the number of abortion visits in a 3-month period. No, they're out to sell abortion. In case we think there's nothing diabolical about killing babies, this one is a certificate. My daughter got it off the internet. She said, Mom, you'll want this for your talk. It's from the Orlando Women's Center, where quality care is tradition. Save $50 with this web coupon valid for abortion services at Orlando Women's Center on Sundays only. Does that tell you something? We can't fight it all, but we can protect our families. We can love our families. We can be a witness to others. We can, with love, to everyone we know. And I'll just give you my Kuharski secret and what we did to raise our 13 kids. There's 5 little ingredients. We pray together, we play together, we eat together, we work together, and the last one was discipline is love. They hated that one. And I'll take them one at a time. Pray together. Don't go to church without your kids. Go with them. Take them on Sundays. I know what a headache it is. I've had kids throw up. I've had kids cry. I swear one hip is bigger than the other because I stood in the vestibule. We didn't have a crying room. And held so many babies and rocked back and forth so I could stay through the rest of the Mass. I'm not kidding. I still rock groceries once in a while. I'm so used to having a kid. Pray together. Men are so important. The father is so important. And if you don't have a father in your life, pray to St. Joseph to be that father in your child's life. Those kids need to have a man to look up to. The father is so important. When those kids see that big man, they listen to me all the time. I'm the mother. But when they see that great big man who brings home he does the work, he's the big guy. Now he's going to kneel down and acknowledge there's someone more powerful, bigger than he is. That is the best witness. No talking can compare what that image will leave in that child's head because Dad prays. So we have to pray for our men, pray for those grandfathers, those men of influence. If you don't have if your husband is not a Catholic or not a prayerful person, then pray that the child will see it through the priest or an uncle or a godparent or somebody. Introduce them to someone. Pray together as a family. Pray together before meals. If you can, I have to admit, we came out of the 60s. I was so grateful I'm still Catholic. Many of my Catholic kids that I grew up with are not and are Catholic friends. It's such a sad thing what that did to tear apart our Catholic faith. I said to my husband, now we had all these kids, they were all troubled, they were special needs, and my husband says we're all special needs. So I said, John, we're having trouble with these kids, some of these kids. I mean, we had kids in mental hospitals, we had them in psych wards, we have had all sorts of problems. So I said, I think we need to go back to the rosary. He said, the rosary? I don't even know if I know how to say it. And I said, I got to have a little booklet. We're gonna start saying the rosary. Well, how are we going to sneak it in when we got adolescent kids? So I said, kids, I have a surprise for Lent. We're not only giving up television and we're not only giving up, I got another surprise. We're going to say a decade a day, a decade each night after. Well, I always got them when it was a captive audience because we'd have our supper together and then we'd say our decade of the rosary. So I said, well, now we're going to say a decade of the rosary. So this is for Lent. Well, then the next week I said, Auntie Joni's getting married. I didn't say she was married outside the church. I just said, Auntie Joni's getting married, so we're going to pray for her happy marriage. And then my granddad was in the hospital. Okay, Grandpa, now next week, add the third decade. Grandpa's in the hospital. We need to pray for Grandpa really bad. He hasn't seen the inside of a confessional in about 50 years, So now it's June, and we're saying the rosary every night, and all of a sudden Charlie, my black son, he's big black kid with big black eyes. He looks up and goes, hey, isn't Lent over? Say it when you're in the car driving. You got a captive audience. What are they going to do? Jump out the window? To this day, the kid that runs the gas station down the street from me says, Mrs. K, I can still remember all the times we went up to your grandma's cabin. He said, we get in that big van. We had a 15-passenger van, and all the kids just cram. I never had any baby carrier junk. And the kids would all cram in. He says, yeah, we'd be punching each other and playing games, and all of a sudden, okay, kids, time for the rosary. It settles everything down. It does. By the time you get through with the rosary, they forget they're punching each other, Pray together. Next thing, play together. Yeah, we had 13 kids. You think I wanted to go on vacation with 13 kids? I mean, really. But my husband always said it's our trip and their vacation, We would get 2 rooms. We tried to find these hotels that would rent to big families. We used to do 1 room, but then it got to be really big. So then we did my husband and the boys. This was like forced contraception. My husband and the boys in 1 room and myself and the girls in the other room, It was so much fun. They remember that. They can't even believe that we went from Minnesota to California. We drove through the Badlands, which was Badlands. And, But these are things you'll never forget. And when we had a big mixed race family, we did what we could so that our kids would grow together in love. We wanted that. And how else do you do it? You have to be together. You pray together. You play together. And then this last topic, and I'm going to dwell on this for a minute because I think it's a lost art in this country. Eat together. Now, I'm telling you, do you think I wanted to eat with those kids? No, I didn't. We had a big table about as big as this, so we had benches my husband made on each side, and my husband and I sat at each end, and, so we could kind of control the problem, And I'm not kidding. We had spilled milk every night. I had this one little kid. I swear she did it on purpose, I got to the point where I just wanted to take the milk, spill it first, so we could get that done with and just eat. No, really. I'm not kidding. Every night, there'd be always something going on, But there's something sacred that happens at a meal. Something sacred happens when you're together, no matter what. It's so important that we eat with our children, not just them eating, but with us. And not just snacks, not standing up. I always feel bad when I see these new, beautiful model homes, millionaire homes. I like to look at the paper, and see what I'm missing. And they've got a bar. People are eating at the bar. No, because you're not facing each other. Not facing each other. It reminds me of one time we were at the table. My little girl, Carrie, she's the one that thought she was adopted. She's one of she's number 10, as she always says. She traveled the country speaking for Net when she was in college, and she'd always say, "Hi, I'm number 10." And but Carrie was sitting across from now my boys are in high school, Timmy and Charlie. Timmy looks like he was swimming in Hilux next to Charlie, his brother. They're both the same age, 6 months apart, and they were in high school together. They both played football. And Carrie looks up one night, we're eating our soup, and she looked up and she said, "Girl, did you ever notice Charlie has a really black face?" Now, isn't that funny? Kids notice. They don't even, she's 5 years old. She just noticed she's got a black brother, My point is, kids have a certain sense of who loves them, who they can trust, and that security. But the color, when they talk about all this diversity junk, it's so far removed from real love and real trust and real, it really is. They're trying to separate us. They're not trying to bring us together. They're trying to separate us. It's no good at all. No good at all. But so a big family getting together, and in case you think I'm exaggerating, I'm hopping a plane after giving a talk one day, and I open up it was an airplane magazine. I'm so bored. I'm looking for something to read, and I read all my little Catholic stuff, and it's asked, I tried it, the Family Dinner Project. Can you believe it? They're talking about a dinner project and how the family grew together. Here's another one. This is from another magazine. Is there a simple way to keep my family happy and healthy? Answer, try this. Studies have shown that kids who eat dinner with their families do better in school, feel more socially connected to their parents, have better peer relationships, and are less likely to try drugs and alcohol. Isn't that something? We have lost the art of how important it is to eat together as a family. So much so, I live in crazy Minnesota. We elect wrestlers, we elect heads of Planned Parenthood. I'm not kidding you. We're the craziest state in the world. This is Carver County, Minnesota, and it's called Table Talk Equals Family Life. Carver County actually paid residents to eat, talk, and connect to their children. This is county money. This is Carver County, Minnesota tax dollar money, paying parents to eat together. They tried to get the parents to cooperate and eat 3 times a week with their kids, and it was too much, so they could only get them to do two nights a week. There's something sacred that happens at the dinner time. It's no accidents. It's no coincidence. The first miracle happened where? At Cana, at a banquet, at a meal. And our Lord wanted to make sure, our Blessed Mother wanted to make sure there was plenty of joy and plenty of wine to make sure the celebration continued. And what was the last miracle before our Lord was crucified? The Last Supper with his apostles and the very person who was going to turn on him. He ate with them. This is a lesson we mothers, because we hold the deal. It's not the men. And trust me, I did not want to eat. I used to admire my neighbor. She'd say, I don't feel like cooking tonight. I'm going to swing by McDonald's. Swing by McDonald's. Do you know what happened if I took my van and my 13 kids? They'd have to put an extra crew on, and my husband would be out of $100 and some. I wished I could swing by McDonald's just for me, alone, without some kid eating everything I want, But a miracle happens. We need to, so much so, I got to tell you a little story. So I went back to meatless meals on Friday. It was cheaper, and I thought, we should be doing this. So we're going to go meatless meals. So one day, Carrie yells down from upstairs. She's got 2 friends visiting her from high school. These kids, she went to a Catholic girls' school, and it was kind of a wealthy. Some of the kids were wealthy. I always wish, can't you find some poor friends? But, oh, no, it's got to be this. They live in a gated community, and they're going to stumble. She yells down, she says, can Jessica and Katie eat at my house? And I yelled up, I said, today is Friday. We're having scrambled egg sandwiches and tomato soup from Campbell's, not my homemade deal. She said, oh, they want to eat here anyways. And I'm going, okay, so now I got about 40 scrambled egg sandwiches I'm trying to dole out, for these kids. And now they're squeezed at the table, too, these 2 high school kids with all my other kids, at the table. And my other kids are looking at them, because you have to stare at anybody that's new at the Kuharski house, I didn't think anything of it. Nice girls, and so the next... I'd say about a few days later, the phone rings. I answer it. They go, hey, Mrs. K. They always call me Mrs. K because they can't pronounce Kuharski, I think, They all call me Mrs. K. Hey, Mrs. K, it's me, Jessica. And I say, oh, Jessica, how are you? I don't know who she is. I can't remember. And they have so many friends, whatever. And she says, guess what I did last night? I says, I can't guess, honey. I can't guess. Give me a clue. She says, I made supper for my mom and dad, and we all ate together. Scrambled egg sandwiches. She lives in a gated community. Go figure. My kids would wish they lived in the gated community. Same thing with the rosary. I had a rule right after supper, we all say the rosary. I don't care who's there. My son just called home. He was in Afghanistan with the United States Army. He was injured in Afghanistan and had to medical discharge. So he was comparing notes. My daughter just told me this. They're texting back and forth about how bad they had it because he's older than the younger kids. And he said, you couldn't have had her nearly as bad as when we were raised, we first set of kids, the older kids. And he said, you wouldn't believe. And her rosary deal, she didn't care who was visiting. We're all saying that rosary together no matter what. And my girls typed back and said, she hasn't changed a bit. We just met the girl across the street who grew up. Her parents were they didn't go to church. But she loved being at her house. She was an only child, and she would love, and I always say, Kay, you've been here all day. Go home. It's time. We're getting the kids ready for bed. Go home. It's time to say the rosary. Usually that's a quick exit. My girls will all walk you to the door. I'll take you home, whatever. She says, and my girls texted Tony back and said, but guess what? Kay says she still knows how to lead the rosary. She's not Catholic. Yeah. Because she stayed at our house so much. We don't care. There's something holy and good that happens. Pray together, play together, eat together, work together. Give them a job. Even if you have to do it over again, and when they go to bed, give them a job. Scrubbing floors, scrubbing walls, doing something. We all have to be a part of it. I had a friend who adopted 3 kids, sibling kids all at once. She really was a glutton for punishment. And she called me one day and she says, oh my gosh, the first 2 younger kids are okay, but the oldest one is so angry and so upset. And she says, what should I do? And I said, do you have a dishwasher? And she says, yeah. I said, don't use it. Give him the job of washing the dishes. And she says, he will break it all. He's really, really upset. I said, no, you tell him every dish has to come out really clean. It's his job to do the dishes. And so she called me about 2 weeks later. I said, how's it going? And she says, she says, things have really calmed down. I think he knows he's here to stay. I said, how's the dishes going? And she said, he takes such pride in knowing that he's in charge of this whole thing and the dishes, and not one dish has been broken. Give him a job. Give him a job. And the same thing with, and of course, discipline is love. God has such a sense of humor. I had one neighbor on one side. He was so upset I had so many kids. He built a fence that was 10 feet high. I'm not kidding. He was kind of a generous alcoholic, so I didn't care. Generous to himself, not to us. And so I just told the kids, pray for Bill. Isn't that sweet? He just wants a little privacy. It's okay. So Then we had another couple that were childless by choice. Isn't that fun? Next door. And so Dominic, who was one of my kids that collected trouble for a hobby, he did it, so I didn't know, in the summertime, I always liked summertime, we had this big deck, and I didn't know what exactly to give him for a punishment because he could break things, which he would break things. And so I would give him the old ice cream bucket full of soap and water and tell him to go out and scrub the deck. That would be his punishment when he was young. And this neighbor came over one day, and she says, we get such a kick out of that little Mexican, your little Dominic. And she says, and to think that he loves scrubbing that deck so much. I say, okay, I think my time is up. Mother Angelica says this, it's beautiful. In your family, trust your children to Jesus. I know the economy is bad and you worry about tomorrow and you worry about your investments, but you only have one investment. And in the kingdom of heaven, when you have Jesus in your heart, you can do all things and overcome the entire world for yourself and your children. So I would say every day, tell your children, I love you. I believe in you. Nobody else does. I believe in you. Tell them to name the person who cares more about your soul than you. Nobody does. My kids will say, I give up. Nobody does. I pray for you. The world, they need to hear this. I'm praying for you. I had a grandmother who said, I need to take your stuff on chastity. I got my grandkids are all going away to college now, and I write them a little love letter every month. And she says, and I tuck a little note in, and I try, now this month the theme's going to be chastity. And I thought, do you think those kids in college are going to want to disappoint that grandma who's praying for them and cares so much about them? She puts a little brochure about chastity to remind them. I love you, I believe in you, I expect great things from you, I'm praying for you, and God loves you. We have to remember, and as you so beautifully said, sister, each and every one made in God's image and likeness. I had one kid, my son Charlie, he just said, when I would get mad when they were little, I would say, okay, you have to write down, go in there and write down, I promise I will not lie 100 times, or I promise I will not cheat 100 times, or whatever it was. Everything was 100. If they asked me back, it was 200 or 300 or 400. Depended. So one year it was Mother's Day, and I'm opening up these cards, and in comes this card. I think, the kid he's now graduated from college. He's been in the Air Force, and he can't afford a decent card. Look at this. Then I opened it up and read it. I love you. Number 1 to 34. Page 2, I love you, number 35 down to 68. I love you, number 69 to 100. Happy Mother's Day. I didn't write this to pound it into my head, but it sings rhythmically from my heart. Love, Charlie. Thank you all, and God bless you.